Welcome to the Critic and the Plebe. I'm Ben. I'm the critic.
And I'm Caitlin. I'm the plebe. This is a podcast where we take turns choosing movies to offer our different perspectives and to hopefully entertain and or inform you all.
A brief warning. This podcast may contain adult content and will definitely contain spoilers. If you haven't seen The Dead Don't Die and you don't want anything given away, please go see the film first and come back later to listen.
In this peaceful town, on these quiet streets, something terrifying, something horrifying is coming.
Excuse me, we're closed. Get away from me!
What the hell was it? A wild animal?
This is really awful. Maybe the worst thing I've ever seen.
What was it, wild animals?
So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking zombies.
What?
You know, the undead. Ghouls.
Now let's get on with our episode with The Dead Don't Die.
You picked this one, so introduce it to us, Ben.
Yes, this was my pick, the critic's pick. Someone of taste, someone of experience, knowledge.
Yeah, so experienced.
And I was able to bring along the plebe with me to The Dead Don't Die. And usually you frown upon horror movies, zombies. I wasn't sure if you were going to be into even going at this one.
Yeah, no, I hate scary movies. I can't do them because they affect me too much. But zombies are the one, like, horror film creature, I guess, that I can stomach. And I think it's because I can definitely tell that it's actors playing them. Like, it's definitely people being the zombies, whereas, like, other things, like demons, are usually, like, they have some sort of CGI, or the makeup's really creepy.
And zombies don't really freak me out either. I'm less emotionally affected by horror movies than you are. I mean, there are definitely some that scare the bejesus out of me, don't get me wrong. I love it when I find a horror movie that does that.
Well, yeah, some people get a sick pleasure out of being horrified.
Lots of our friends do.
I know.
Are you calling our friends sick people?
A little bit, yeah. Why would you purposely do that to yourself?
That makes one of us. Anyway, The Dead Don't Die, honestly, it's not quite a horror movie. I wouldn't even call it a horror movie proper. It is a 2019 film, released in the year 2019.
You did it again.
I did it again, just like the first episode. I'll get there.
He'll figure it out eventually.
Anyway, I would call it a black comedy overall. It is directed by Jim Jarmusch, who is a famous independent director, best known for movies like Stranger Than Paradise in 1984, which was kind of one of the core indie movies, really starting that movement back then. He's also known for a Western that he made with Johnny Depp called Dead Man back in 1995, which maybe is one that you, Caitlin, would actually be willing to see, given the presence of the Depp.
We'll see.
How I would describe a Jarmusch movie is giving a low-key take on genre films. He's been doing that a lot. He's been taking the bare-bones basics of genres and sort of putting his own lo-fi twist on them.
Who is in this movie?
The film stars Bill Murray, Adam Driver, Tilda Swinton, Chloe Sevigny, Steve Buscemi, Danny Glover, Selena Gomez, Tom Waits, Iggy Pop, Caleb Landry Jones.
Is that why you picked this particular movie?
Well, I am into Jim Jarmusch. I've enjoyed everything that I've seen that he's made. Down by Law is probably my favorite. That's his take on the prison break genre. You've seen at least one Jim Jarmusch movie. We watched Only Lovers Left Alive together. Do you remember what that one's all about?
Nope.
That is the one that we watched in college, and that has Tom Hiddleston. I can't believe that you can't remember Tom Hiddleston.
I mean, I remember. I know who he is.
Tom Hiddleston as a vampire, and you don't remember that.
Was that the one with Tilda Swinton?
Yeah, Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston and the
yeah,
vampires.
I remember that vaguely, yeah.
So I was interested in seeing his second foray into a horror movie, but of course it's a Jarmusch horror movie. Lots of deadpan line delivery. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wanted to see The Dead Don't Die. And it wasn't too hard pulling you there because Selena Gomez was in there for you.
Yes. We love the Selena.
Well, you love the Selena.
We all love the Selena. Thank you very much.
50% of the Critic and the Plebe love Selena.
It's a pretty good ratio if you ask me.
Oh, that seems...
At least half.
Well, on a grading scale, that's failure.
Well,
50% is failure.
It shouldn't be. So I get to describe the plot, right?
Yeah, give us a good old plot overview of The Dead Don't Die.
We'll see how this goes. Okay, so the movie starts with Bill Murray. He's the police chief, and Adam Driver, another police officer in this very small town. They find Tom Waits in the woods, and that's kind of the point where they realize that like things are starting to be strange. As they're driving away from Tom Waits in the woods, it's not getting dark, and it's already 8 p.m., so they're kind of like, oh, that's kind of weird. And we hear on the radio and everything that there's been this polar fracking going on. So the polar fracking for the oil is throwing off the tilt of the Earth, which is going to result in some pretty catastrophic weather events, some weird things that nobody can really anticipate. And the biggest weird thing that they can't anticipate happens to be a spooky moon. It's kind of got this purplish glow around it and looks very mystifying. This moon is causing the undead to rise again, starting a zombie apocalypse.
In this small town of Centerville, USA. The undead are rising again, and it's up to the three cops, which are basically the main characters in this movie, to combat the undead or find a way to solve this problem because the world's going insane.
Yeah, I would say we follow the cops. It didn't feel like it was their duty to fix the situation because I think everyone kind of knew that the situation was too big to be fixed, so it was kind of just like survive if you can and do what you can to kill zombies.
Yeah, which you can read, which some people might get frustrated by, some people might read deeper into. It's an interesting movie. You know, I got a lot out of it. I wouldn't go in expecting a Shaun of the Dead. I would go in expecting, this is a artist, this is a writer-director who is using this genre to reflect his time period. Starting at the beginning, like you were saying, we've got Bill Murray and Adam Driver going up to Tom Waits in the woods, who's just a
Hermit Bob.
It seems like he's a distant relative of the prospector he played in Buster Scruggs, sort of this bedraggled hobo type of guy who apparently has just lived out in those woods since he graduated high school with Bill Murray.
He seems like he's playing the role of the outside observer, literally and metaphorically.
Most of the movie, Hermit Bob is looking at the other characters through binoculars. He's kind of this constant presence. They talk to Hermit Bob because a farmer in town, played by Steve Buscemi, has accused Hermit Bob of stealing one of his chickens. And it's interesting how they handle it, because Bill Murray and Adam Driver go up, they're confronting him about it. Hermit Bob shoots his gun at them at one point. He's like firing on a police officer. But Bill Murray is oddly lax about it.
Well, he knows Hermit Bob. He went to high school with him. And he knows he's harmless.
And that's what he says on the way back, because Adam Driver is reacting more how I'm reacting, where Adam Driver's saying, like, yeah, shouldn't we arrest that guy? You know, the guy who just shot at us? And Bill Murray gives the excuse that you just gave. Just, oh, well, I know him. Who cares? I just feel like that sets an interesting tone, because this is showing these police officers are supposed to be in this place of authority, but they're bending the rules. Bill Murray can bend the rules. He's a police chief.
It's also a really small town. I think small town authorities are different than, you know, like city authorities. Everyone knows who they are. They're just a part of the local community. Maybe it's a small town thing, because I grew up in a small town, but like you know the officers personally, and the officers know all of the citizens that they are quote unquote protecting personally. So he knows Hermit Bob on a personal level and is like, well, I don't like Farmer Miller. He's kind of a jerk. Hermit Bob isn't a jerk. He's just a little eccentric.
I'm not saying like that Centerville is like a lawless wasteland. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that it's interesting that you have this authority figure picking and choosing favorites and deciding which laws to enforce for who. I find that an interesting way to set the tone. Just because right now, out there in the world, we've got a lot of problems with public servants following through with the rule of law. What do we see next?
Well, it's just kind of going around Centerville and focusing on the different people that live in this small town. You've got like the motel owner. You
Yep.
have Farmer Miller, who's at the like one diner in town, talking with the waitresses. There's Hank, who owns the hardware store, I believe.
And that scene's fantastic too. That's another one that's pretty overtly. That's probably the most overtly political scene. Like you cannot possibly miss this because Steve Buscemi is Farmer Miller, the guy who complained about Hermit Bob. He's wearing a red trucker hat that says "Keep America White Again."
I thought it said "Make America
Nope, it
White
says
Again."
"Keep America White."
Does it?
Again.
Oh, okay.
It's keep, and that stood out to me because it's like that even makes less sense. Like just
Are you sure?
it is keep.
Okay.
I will die on this hill. It is keep.
Okay.
I will bet you anything.
All right.
Anyway, he's got the hat on, which obviously clearly a reference to MAGA hats. But it's just a somehow stupider version of a MAGA hat.
Especially since Hank, who happens to be black, is sitting right next to him.
But they're just he's unfazed. Hank, Danny Glover, is just sort of pretty unfazed about it. Like, it doesn't, he doesn't, like, say, "Hey, what's up with that hat, Farmer Miller?"
He knows that that's what Farmer Miller is. I would assume. I mean, they've lived again, when you live in a small town, you know everyone and what they're like and kind of their opinions on things. And I'm sure Hank has known Farmer Miller for a long time and vice versa. And they have this sort of understanding, I guess.
It's clear, but it's just funny. It just says so much about American racism right now, where they have a very cordial conversation. Like, Steve Buscemi's wearing that hat, which is clearly pretty racially charged political ideology, saying like, "This is what's in my head." Yeah, antagonistic. This is what's in my head, but they still have a pretty cordial conversation. There's not a problem there. Like, it's not like Steve Buscemi's gonna go burn a cross on Hank's lawn, but at the same time he has that aggressive hat.
Yep.
But yet, just an individual black person he still talks to. So,
Yeah, it is interesting.
yeah, I just feel like it says a lot about American racism in theory and in practice.
So that's one of the stops in Centerville as the cops are going around. Then some out-of-town hipsters come in from Cleveland. That would be Selena Gomez and her two friends. People notice them right away. Wait, that's later in the movie. We haven't even talked about the arrival of the zombies. Because the arrival of the zombies happens first, or at least the first zombie attack.
Yeah.
Before anyone really knows what's going on, the zombies arise from the cemetery, 2 of them. And they go to the diner because in this movie the mythology is that the zombies go after what they wanted in their living life, the things that they gravitated towards, and these 2 gravitated towards coffee.
So instead of brains,
Yeah.
they're moaning coffee.
They moan the things that they wanted in life. So they go to the diner to get this coffee, and there's a cleaner there, and the head server, or who I believe is also the owner of the diner, are unfortunate enough to be there, and the zombies pretty gruesomely and brutally
devour their
flesh
Yeah.
and their intestines.
That delivers the goods. If you're looking for some gore, that scene is definitely one that delivers some great zombie gore there.
It was gross. And that's how everyone reacts when they find out, because Hank comes to the diner the next morning to have his daily day at the diner and finds the waitress and the lady who is cleaning dead. He calls the authorities, and they all go in and look one by one, and they all ask, was it a wild animal or several wild animals, perhaps? Eventually, Adam Driver says, "You want to know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking zombies."
Bill Murray is still a little bit in disbelief, but at the same time, they don't really know what's going on, so they're going to go with that safe. You know, that's the best guesses they have right now. And it's important to note too that we also have Chloe Sevigny, the cop, and she comes in too, and she definitely has the most emotional reaction throughout the movie. She's very worried, anxious. Adam Driver he's kind of doomsaying throughout. Like he says multiple times throughout the movie, "This is going to end badly. This is going to end badly."
But he's not phased emotionally. And Bill Murray's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, Bill Murray's almost apathetic. Bill Murray doesn't seem to really do much or
He gets worried.
care that much.
He escalates a little bit. He's not like nearly as worried as I would be, or I think most people would be, or all the other people in the town are, especially once they start seeing the zombies.
Yeah, first they start hearing about this bad accident, whatever happened at the diner. Word goes out around the town. We get those aforementioned Cleveland hipsters coming in, and they visit Caleb Landry Jones at the gas station, and they kind of make fun of him a little bit, even though he's giving them some good service. He sees Selena Gomez, falls in love with Selena Gomez, but that doesn't really go anywhere. That's just a little seed that's planted that isn't really addressed for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But I feel like enough of that happens where that's kind of the point. There are quite a few seeds, like traditional horror cliche, movie cliche, plot seeds that are planted, but that are not really grown to any fruition or come
Like the
to
random
anything.
child detention center.
Which is one of the places that it flashes to directly after the diner.
I thought it was weird to see it in such a small town because usually in a small town you have like only the necessities. You've got your bar, your restaurant, your church, your houses. Like you really don't have much else. And then there's randomly like just this institution for juvenile delinquents. It doesn't explain why they're there, and they have the Dwayne the Rock Johnson sized guards like at this facility.
I thought that one of them was Bruce Willis for a second.
They looked like Bruce Willis because they were
Yeah.
just like these tough white guys with these bald heads that just look like Bruce Willis walking around.
But the three kids are pretty likable, though.
Yeah, I mean I like them. I have no idea why they were there or like what the point is.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
hard
there's
to
these
say.
just three teenagers that were there kind of just commenting on what's going on. And then the next night comes, the moon is still very creepy, and then we flash to the cemetery, and way more zombies this night, not just two. Hundreds, I would say.
But in the meantime, Adam Driver and Bill Murray and Chloe Sevigny have sort of prepped themselves for being zombies.
Yep.
Or for going against zombies, not being zombies.
A few people have in the town, yeah.
Yeah, because Caleb Landry Jones, the nerdy gas station owner, who is just a horror buff, he's got a Nosferatu shirt, he's got a Night of the Living Dead poster on his counter, a Night of the Living Dead button on his vest. He is also presupposed that, hey, this
This
sounds
is
like some
zombies.
zombie stuff.
Yep.
And he teams up with Hank.
Yep,
Caleb
at
Landry
the hardware
Jones
store.
teams up with Hank in his hardware store, getting hedge clippers, getting a saw, shotguns.
And that's where we learn that you gotta take out the head, and that's the only way to kill a zombie.
Yes, kill the head is the key. And Adam Driver, the cop, also knows this.
Yeah, he tells us this too.
So we have a couple of factions that know what to do when it comes to zombies. And we also have the most formidable zombie killer that we haven't
yeah.
even talked about yet.
The funeral director, played by Tilda Swinton.
In just a bizarre role. I mean, she has a lot of bizarre roles. She's great, one of my favorite actresses. And she has a lot of bizarre roles. This may be in the top 3 most bizarre of her roles.
It was weird, yeah.
Super weird. She is a Scottish funeral director, and she's not from the town, but she seems to have been there, I don't know, maybe a year or so. She's pretty new.
She looks like she's going to a karate class.
Yeah, more of a karate class, not a samurai.
Yeah,
She doesn't
yeah,
have.
definitely
She's not wearing
not.
samurai armor, but she
Yeah,
does
no.
have a samurai sword.
She does have a sword, and she's very good with the sword. But when the zombie apocalypse arrives, we have a handful of people in town that are as prepared as they can be. And then the rest of the film is essentially them fighting off the zombies and being picked off one by one. The motel guy kind of goes first, or he's one of the first to go.
Yes, the owner of the motel where Selena Gomez and the Cleveland hipsters are staying at. That gets infiltrated first. And that's one of the first stops that the cops make. They go there and they find that the 3 hipsters, including Selena Gomez, are dead. This is an interesting scene for Adam Driver.
Where he machete chops all of their heads off.
I guess it's interesting because Chloe Sevigny's character, who again is the more scared, emotional one, she is just like, how could you do that? They're not even zombies yet. Again, having this more scared reaction. Contrast with Adam Driver's reaction, which is very pragmatic.
I was appalled at him holding up Selena Gomez's severed head.
I enjoyed that very much.
I did not.
I mean, it was just a good-looking severed head, you know. Not just because it was Selena Gomez, I mean, like, the effects
Well, yeah.
as well.
Can't hold her beautiful head up. It's not right. So they go... Who else goes next?
At the hardware store, we have Caleb Landry Jones and Danny Glover.
They were doing
/
pretty
Hank.
good for a long time.
They were doing good. They were like barring down the door. They're shooting zombies' heads off as they crawl through the hardware store.
using some clippers.
Hedge clippers are used. Shotguns are used.
But eventually zombies get in through the back door and take them down too. Farmer Miller gets kind of carried out of his house. He's been using his rifle to kind of shoot down zombies coming up to his house. He was doing okay for a while too, but he gets overwhelmed.
He also
and
gets
is
overwhelmed.
essentially torn apart.
Meanwhile, Hermit Bob, that's one that Hermit Bob just witnesses from
Yeah.
the woods. He's just looking through his binoculars, watching Steve Buscemi / Farmer Miller getting mauled by zombies and doing nothing about it.
While eating Farmer Miller's chicken. And then Tilda Swinton comes to the police station and kind of tells them, we should meet up in the cemetery at some point. I can handle myself. I'm quite confident with my ability to handle the zombies, because she is just walking through town with her samurai sword, very easily cutting off the heads of any and all zombies that she encounters.
She basically says, okay, let's split up, kill some zombies, and we'll meet in the cemetery later.
I kind of appreciated that she called the cops out, because she's like, so what's your plan, Chief? And he basically comes up with a plan on the spot, which is like, well, I guess we'll go out and patrol and see what we can do. But she is kind of like revealing that cops have no plan. They have no idea what they should be doing. So they go out and they like drive around and find all of the zombies that we talked about. Well, Tilda Swinton commandeers the computer with a wave of her hand.
And we see her mysteriously typing in code. After she does that, she leaves the police station, taking Adam Driver's little smart car.
So then they converge at the cemetery, where the police car gets stuck from running over so many zombies, so they can't drive anymore. So now the car is just getting overwhelmed by all of the zombies coming out of the cemetery.
And we have Chloe Savigny in the back seat.
Freaking out.
And Adam Driver and Bill Murray in the front, again being less emphatic.
Mindy eventually sees her dead grandmother at the window.
And that pushes her over the edge.
That's kind of her last straw.
And that
she jumps out.
is when she jumps out and just says, screw it, I'm joining the craziness. I don't care anymore. I'm so afraid that I'm just going to go with it, basically.
Yeah.
Like, I can't handle this.
Yep. So then the zombies take her, and then you have Adam Driver and Bill Murray in the front seat, basically having a meta moment.
One of at least two, because there's a meta moment earlier where Adam Driver turns on a song on the radio and says, and Bill Murray's like, what is this song? And then Adam Driver says, well, this is the theme song. But this meta moment later on in the cop car, they're talking about how Adam Driver keeps on saying it's going to end badly, and he says it again. And Bill Murray says, how do you know it's going to end badly? And Adam Driver says, well, because I read the script. It's funny, but also bizarre.
And then Tilda Swinton walks into the cemetery, and a UFO appears and beams her up, and then she flies away.
They stage it. It looks like she's about to have like an ultimate zombie like cut up because all the zombies flock to her.
I thought that's what she was going to do.
No, that's what it looks like. I mean,
I thought she called in help, and like the aliens were going to help them, but no, she just gets beamed up and leaves.
Yep, she's got a plan, and that's what she was doing on the computer. Apparently, she was contacting her mothership, and she's out of there. So that
I think
leaves...
she must have just known that humanity was screwed by that point.
Yeah, which
no saving them.
You can't really blame her for thinking that with how Centerville was turning out.
And that's kind of what Adam Driver and Bill Murray then say is like, well, if it's going to end badly, I mean, let's give it our best shot.
And they get out of the cop car, and it's a whole end sequence narrated by Hermit Bob.
And talking about how, like, the zombies they're basically zombies because of the materialistic natures of their living lives. Of their lives when they were alive. How do you say zombies when they were alive? When they were not dead?
When they were alive was fine.
Yeah.
That was just fine.
The zombies when they were alive.
It's a classic case of overthinking.
Yeah. I just felt like there was a better way to say it.
He brings in that little message of materialism, and we see that too. Earlier on, there's clips of the zombies going throughout the town, and as we said before, with the coffee zombies, other zombies are saying things like Wi-Fi.
Yeah, Bluetooth.
Yeah, Bluetooth.
All these dudes are going to the hardware store going tools.
Yep, there's a couple zombies saying Xanax.
Yeah, Xanax at the pharmacy. One goes fashion and like poses before Tilda Swinton cuts her head off.
So there's that message that comes in as well. And then ultimately, how does this all end up? It's a pretty cheery note. You walked out smiling.
Well, that's basically the end of the movie, as everyone gets eaten or destroyed by this zombie apocalypse.
Including Bill Murray and Adam Driver.
Including the main characters, which Adam Driver told us was going to happen a couple minutes before it actually did.
And throughout the rest of the movie.
Yeah. And I mean, it ends with Tom Waits essentially saying, like, yep, there goes humanity, just as we all kind of knew it would. Like, so it does end on, like, I said very sarcastically, well, that was positive. Like, great hope for the future. It's a weird movie. I left the movie feeling like it was weird, and I didn't necessarily think that a lot of the things that happened in it had a point or needed to be there. Like, this happens a lot with some of the movies that you make me see, is I feel like they're just like making artsy choices to make artsy choices. Like, it feels like they're pushing these boundaries and trying to be unique for just to make it like seem like a cool movie, you know, or to push the limits of what film can do. But as just a casual observer, I was like, well, that was weird. And I mean, I get the point of it. The point was definitely loud and clear. Like, materialism bad, climate change bad. And that's like, it's causing a disease in humans, and we're all being eaten and overwhelmed by this disease of greed and selfishness and materialism, which is also contributing to climate change and is kind of the reason that climate change is happening. So I got the point of it, but it was also just like, it was weird. I don't know. There were so many things that didn't make sense for me. So ultimately, if I'm grading this film, I would say I'd probably give it like, I don't know, like a C-, I guess. Because it had some interesting moments and some interesting parts, and I think the performances were all good. Like, the actors all did a nice job. But I just think it was a little too weird. There were a lot of things that felt like they didn't need to be there. Like, Tilda Swinton's alien character, did that really add anything for me? No. Having the child detention center and all of the scenes with the kids there, I don't think that needed to be there. It could have easily just been kids in the town, and I feel like that would have been just as effective, or it would have done the same thing. The little meta moments, like, I don't know what the point of those were. There were just a lot of things that I felt like they didn't need to be there.
So you're at a C-.
Probably. That's my gut reaction.
That's interesting.
Yeah, how about you?
I would disagree with a lot of what you said, but I do agree with some in that I'm still not quite sure how the meta stuff goes in. Still not totally sure how Tilda Swinton works into the equation or the overall thesis of the movie. But I would say that there's a bit more going on than what you give it credit for ideologically. I think it's a bit more than just materialism bad, climate change bad. I feel like The Dead Don't Die works best as an examination of how just Americans are handling our current situation right now. You know, because we're in a post-Brexit world, a Trump-encrusted world, a climate-changing world. There's a lot that's going to hell in a handbasket. Or at least that's clearly what Jim Jarmusch feels, and it's what a lot of media pundits feel right now as we're living through this time. Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's an interesting examination of, again, it's interesting that the cops are the main characters. Again, these people that represent authority, these public servants, and they are people who don't really have a plan for any of this. And some, one of the cops is reacting emotionally and just giving yourself up to all this horror and becoming a part of that. One of them is just sort of going about and killing zombies left and right without much, thought or remorse. Just kill, kill, kill. Got to keep going. not even stopping to think, is there a way to cure this? Is there a way to stop this at all? Because there's other ways that you could solve it. You don't necessarily have to kill everybody. There could be ways to heal people. Or, stop this thing without carnage and putting everybody else at risk by fighting the zombies. You have Bill Murray, who's just, again, sort of, I felt pretty apathetic, not really doing too much, just like, oh, well, what do we do? Again, he's almost like this kind of overall symbol of a flaccid patriarch in a way, which is, for the most part, what a lot of countries are experiencing right now, all these old ways that are seeming outdated in the face of these new challenges.
Yeah.
Overall, I'd grade it a B. It is not my favorite Jim Jarmusch movie that I've seen, and I honestly think that it just hits too close to home right now. Like, I was, I felt a little drained at the ending, because I liked the characters, I liked the antics, I liked the deadpan delivery. I had pretty steady enjoyment throughout the film, but I think just because it reflects the era that we live in right now so well, that it's almost, it just felt a little draining for me. I think that this might age better, or looking back and watching it as like a time capsule of this period, I think it'll be like a great measuring stick of, oh wow, so that's what the 2010s felt like. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my mini prediction for it, and that's why I enjoyed it overall.
It's interesting that you see it as a symbol for that. I could see how you would think that way, though. I mean, I can see that argument.
That's what Centerville felt like. It's just sort of this microcosm of the country at large.
And I think that was part of the point, naming it Centerville. Like, it's in the center of everything. It's like your average rural town in America.
Exactly. And you know what? It's a real nice place. It says so on the sign.
I don't believe that sign.
Well, I mean, post-zombie apocalypse, I don't think any place would be a real nice place.
I don't think it would be a nice place at all.
That's fair. We can't agree on that, despite our grades.
Yep.
That wraps up The Dead Don't Die. If you have other thoughts and opinions on it, feel free to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Letterboxd, etc. And what is our next episode? Because it'll be your pick.
Yeah, I get to pick now. And it's probably going to have to be Toy Story 4, the newest Toy Story, even though the third one ended the original trilogy very well. It's probably my favorite of the trilogy. I am curious to see what the fourth one does. I can't pass up a Pixar movie. Never have been able to. I love Disney Pixar, so curious to see how that goes.
Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Thanks for listening in.